Right, I'm Tom Smith, FWCF, GradDIP, ELR, from south of England, Winchester.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier Podcast.
Every horse, whatever it was doing, had a season. Once their competition season finished, they took the shoes off, they chucked it out in the field with some other horses, and it had a 2, maybe 3 months period where it went and remembered what being a horse was all about.
Even in a cheaper area, your prices should be set by your skill level, by your experience. And some people might not feel that they're worth, as much as others. But if you're only charging $160 to shoe a horse, then the only way you're making money is on your trims.
The WCB was a way to make sure that you kept the trade alive. I think I'm a custodian of the trade, so it's like we have to keep it going.
It was hard, but you adapt and overcome, and that probably gets to me where I am now. It's problem solving, horseshoeing's problem solving, and back in the day it was problem solving how to be as strong as the older apprentice is. So it's all about adapting and overcoming, which was good.
I know we learn every day, but you do have to put yourself outside the box and just continue to learn, which is why I was just trying to do my fellowship, because I still have apprentices, and if I stay at my AW, I'm stagnant.
Welcome, everyone. A little shopkeeping before we start. Dr. Simon Curtis is hosting his last webinar of the year on December 6th. It's called the Hoof Rehab Webinar with Marty Sala and Paige Poss. For tickets to this event, go to eventbrite.co.uk and look up the Hoof Rehab Webinar with Dr. Simon Curtis. And don't forget to enter Mullins as the discount code at checkout. This episode is being released just after hosting my good friend Cody Gregory for a one-day forging clinic at Andrew DeVisser's shop in Paris, Ontario, and then a 2-day whole horse dissection at the McKee Pownell Clinic in Schaumburg, Ontario, sponsored by Ali Carpenter of Invictus Farrier and Dr. Kate Robinson of the McKee Pownell Clinic. The turnout for both events was fantastic, and I really enjoyed getting to meet so many new folks with a shared desire to learn and improve to better serve their clients. We had body workers, vet techs, saddle fitters, equine chiros, and physiotherapists join our regular group of vets and farriers for the dissection, and it was really cool to hear their unique perspectives and insights. As usual, Cody knocked it out of the park with both clinics, and I was asked by multiple attendees when we could have him back to do another one. Cody is the king of full immersion, and equine anatomy has been one of his deep dives. About 40 whole horse dissections later, he has teaching it down to an art. If you're interested in setting up one for your own association or group, I would highly recommend reaching out to him. Go to CodyGregoryLLC.com and send him a message through his site. Today's interview comes from my time spent at Stoneleigh this year, and we've released it first in the queue of many interviews I did there because of its topical nature. You may recognize Tom Smith's voice from the episode I did with the Farriers Registration Council last year. As the chair of the council, Tom has a unique perspective into the controversy surrounding the diploma and higher level exams in England through the Worshipful Company of Farriers. I would highly recommend that you listen to both the FRC and the Worshipful Company episodes if you're not familiar with the organizations and the jobs that they fulfill for farriery in England. Then, to make you do even more homework, I would point you to the BFBA's website at forgeandfarrier.co.uk and search for the press releases on the farriery endpoint assessment updates under the latest news tab. I feel like with this little bit of legwork, you will have a much better understanding of the situation. Ever since meeting Tom last year, I wanted to sit down with him and understand why he took the often thankless position he has with the FRC. and what his journey to become an FWCF was like. After our relatively brief first encounter, my instincts told me that he was going to be an inspiring guest. And as you will hear, he did not disappoint. Thoughtful, driven, and not afraid to tackle the hard things, Tom has accomplished many impressive goals. You'll even hear us get a little choked up about our respective truck dogs who recently passed. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Now, for people who don't know, what does the ELR stand for?
Equine Locomotor Research.
Right.
That stands for, yeah.
And what was the process that you went through to do that?
So I was actually the first cohort of people that did that course. Went to the Royal Veterinary College in London. I think it was about 2.5 years of studying during the week. And then every month or two, we went up for a long weekend.
Oh, okay.
They walked you through the process from how to conduct a study. You do the introduction, you do your study planning, you do your paper-based research, all the way up to actually conducting the study and then analysing it statistically as well. That was an exciting weekend. The statistical analysis weekend was something else, that was.
Yeah, I bet. In what order would you have done that? Like, did you go for your FWCF before doing that? Or
No.
It sounds like that would have helped.
Oh, it really did.
Yeah, okay.
So I did, obviously, my diploma, my associate, and the papers now we have to write for the fellowship are so scientific.
Right.
If you go onto the Worshipful Company's website and look at the thesis that has been produced, you can see a real change in them. And I didn't have a clue how to write a scientific paper. So it was actually Hayden Price. He phoned me up one day and he said, look, he used to be quite, he probably still is, good friends and an associate with Renata Weller, who was running the course at the time. She designed the course with him or with some of the input from him at least. And so he said to me, this is a really good course on its own, but actually, if you're looking to do your fellowship, it's an even more meaningful course because it gives you that necessary skill set to be able to write the paper. And actually, the paper I wrote for the GradDIP was largely the paper I submitted for my FW. It just had to be changed a bit from academic to satisfy the FW requirements. So yeah, it was a cracking experience. I've heard you say many times on your podcast, so it's the journey.
Yeah.
That exam at the end, that represents the journey that you've been on. And I can now confidently sit there and review a scientific paper. I don't just believe what it tells me. I look at I can understand the process that they've gone through and make up my own mind whether I agree with the outcome or whether I think the statistics have been applied in a strange way. And
okay,
I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I can get that little bit more out of it than I used to. I'm very grateful that I was given the opportunity to do it. And I think it's a shame that I don't think they're running the course anymore.
Oh, really?
No, I think it's still on the radar from what I hear, but yeah, I think the uptake's just been
not enough. And
yeah, it's a shame.
One of the things that I'd asked Dr. Simon Curtis when I interviewed him, I was really interested in his ability to read research papers. And I said, as a lay person, what's the best way to get into reading them and interpreting them? Like, would you run into many that are skewed? Because I feel like now a lot of people with agendas, whether it's marketing a product or saying that a technique is wrong or whatever, they say it's scientific in air quotes, but if you read the actual study, that there might not be any there. Do you come across that a lot? Or
again, it was something that I learned. You read a paper. There's one person in particular, I probably shouldn't name him, that I'm thinking of that has advocated certain styles of shoes, for example.
Yeah.
And then you learn about, I forget what they call it, it's like a pyramid of hierarchy of what, almost an order that you can analyze a paper with. So peer-reviewed papers would be above an opinion piece, for example.
Yeah.
And I think also the other thing I learned was, and it doesn't necessarily mean a paper's bad, but you have some papers that are written and they're funded by an organization that wishes for you to read it with the results that they would like it to have. And So I think you have to look at the ethics, you have to look at the funding and any declaration of interest around the papers,
Right.
because you can't always trust it on face value,
Yeah.
And I found that fascinating as well.
No kidding. Yeah, it's almost, if you paint it in a certain light, for the lay person who doesn't know how to read it, they're just like, oh, okay, well, it's peer reviewed, and away we go.
Yeah. And the statistics are the same. There's so many statistical analysis that you can apply to a set of numbers if you've got them.
Okay.
Renata was actually my lead. She had a little group of us, and I was lucky enough to have her as my lead supervisor. She really steered me in the right direction with my statistical analysis, but actually a bit of a minefield. We learned a lot of the basic ones. If your data is normally distributed, if it's not normally distributed, and if you're trying to achieve this and that. And so I think what the weekend taught me was not about all of the statistical analysis techniques you've got, but that actually if you choose the right one, it will show the right things. If you choose the wrong one, it might show something completely different.
Right.
You can read into that what you like. And actually, at Renata's suggestion, I submitted my paper to be presented at the Beaver Congress, which is the British Equestrian Veterinary Association Congress, that year. And to do that, you have to submit it. And then I think it's reviewed by 3 or 5 people. And they all have to like the concept and the paper. 2 or 3 of them said they liked it, and 1 or 2 tore my statistical analysis to shreds. So,
really?
Yeah, which was quite amusing, because Renata was, being the lady that she is, she's so intelligent, fiercely intelligent, and she didn't particularly appreciate the fact that they'd torn it to shreds when basically she'd worked through it with me,
Right, yeah. Took it personally.
But I think that's the beauty and the issue with statistics and academia in general is you don't actually have to agree on everything. It's not black and white. It's, you can believe bits, you can take bits, you can leave bits. And that's what I took from it. You can learn from anything, but you've actually got to be a bit selective about what you're learning from.
Right. The philosophical part of myself with horseshoeing, I always found it frustrating from go. I would ask my boss, like, well, what do you do in this situation? Blah, blah, blah. And he'd say, depends on.
Yeah.
And that was his go-to phrase. And I found, as I then started reading textbooks and seeing that there were differing opinions on even seemingly simple concepts, then I thought, okay, the peer-reviewed, like all this research and the way that people are learning to interpret it as farriers, here's where the truth is finally going to be at. And then to find out that there's still a human element to it.
Yeah, completely. And the problem we've got in farriery is there's so little of it.
Yeah.
It's gradually increasing, but you look at, for my paper, we had to do all the research behind it. And I was drawing on, because I did 3D imaging of the horse's foot with a view to understanding morphology. And I was drawing on archaeology because they do big geographical surveys. I was drawing on veterinary. I was drawing on IT and photography. There was an element of photography as well, because, there's techniques you can piece together loads of photos of the same object to make a 3D image.
Right.
Photogrammetry, it's called. And we don't have much in farriery. And I think the degree course at Myerscough College, for example, the FW that requires a paper, and you mentioned Dr. Curtis earlier on today. Some of the work that he and others have done, they're really at the coalface of us understanding our profession a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the work I do is based on my own anecdotal evidence, and I really value that. But I use the hoofbeat system, for example, which was Workman Black, and
right,
just to try and objectify. Sometimes, you can watch a horse and it was lame on the left hind last time you saw it. Oh, is that lame? Is it not? Whereas you've got objective data, it can actually help.
Right.
And
remove some of the bias that you might have yourself.
Yeah, but then I'm sat here now saying how scientific I am, and really I'm not on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
It formed a big part of my life, and I'm extremely glad that I went through it. And it does always change your judgment, and yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's still got to translate into what you do on the horse's foot and how you service your horses and your customers. And I think you can get a bit obsessed with being academic, or you can get obsessed with just doing what you've done because you've always done it like that. I think you've got to try and bring it all together.
Yeah.
Just realize that each element is a tool that we've got, and gradually try and muddle your way through the best you can and try and keep as many horses sound and keep as many customers happy as you can. And
Right.
if you can earn enough to get by as well in the process, even
Bonus.
better.
Yeah.
Happy days.
And what made you decide to go in the direction of getting your FWCF?
I don't know, to be honest. So I trained as an apprentice in Mid Wales with a chap called Chris Powell. When I joined him, he was an associate, part-time lecturer at Warwickshire College. Just an inquisitive mind. His route into farriery wasn't standard. He hadn't actually done an apprenticeship. He'd learned around the time that the Registration Act came in, and he came in basically on grandfather rights. But that meant that he could only shoe his own horses, and gradually started figuring it out. He is a really inquisitive person, and I think I was inspired by him. I'm pretty sure he'll never hear this, so I can get away with saying soppy things about him. But, you know, he's an inspiring chap. He's well known because he's taught so many apprentices through the years. But he did his diploma so that he was allowed to shoe other horses. And then he went and did his associate. As I understand it, I think Jim Blurton, who was relatively local to him, really helped him through that process.
Oh, okay.
And then when I was an apprentice with him, he had this opinion that the angle of the toe could never marry up with the angle of the heel. And we always sort of said, or he always said, that he should do his fellowship paper on that. And yeah, he had all these ideas, but we didn't really understand how to put them on paper easily. So he and I gathered all his thoughts a bit, and I arranged them a bit on a paper, not on paper, on a computer. And then that got him up and running. And I enjoyed watching him go through that process. He was one of those that always wanted to understand when he was forging a shoe. He'd want to understand why that happened. He wasn't just satisfied that it did. And I've always been a bit the same. And I think I was probably one of his most frustrating apprentices.
A lot of whys.
Well, yeah. Why? The hours I've wasted. You know, he'd teach me how to make a corking and wedge, for example. And I'd be like, no, there's a better way. There's a better way. And I'd spend evenings in the forge wasting his coke and his steel. And I'd come back to him. Like, that was on the Monday. By the Friday, yeah, I've gone back to your way, Chris. You know, I've always been quite driven as well. I don't like sitting still. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the problems that we can get when you're day to day out shoeing. I lose a bit of passion for it if I'm not careful. And I've always found, I did a lot of competitions when I was an apprentice, but once I started running my business, that was always very difficult to keep going. And I was never satisfied with going and just taking part. There is an element of winning that does matter. Right. Despite what everyone says.
You. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started my business, and that was a good challenge at first when I qualified. Started my business, and that went well. And then, yeah, I thought, now's the time. I need to do my associate. So I did that. That was great. I did the BFBA associate course, which was the first one I think they'd ever done. Again, I managed to get in on the first intake, and that was run by Mark Watson, who's an awesome farrier.
Yeah,
you know, both practically and theoretically, and as a decent human being as well. You know.
Yep.
So he was really inspiring, and then I always said I wanted to do my fellowship just to keep bettering myself. And if I'm honest, I like to challenge myself as much as sort of set myself apart. You know,
yeah,
it sounds a bit big-headed, doesn't it?
It's the truth, though.
Yeah, and I improve a lot for myself, but actually, if it can help the profession or help other people along the way, then happy days. I'm happy if I can do that, and I wouldn't say the world changes dramatically. You know, I remember when I passed my associate, I got back then they used to post the results to you, and my wife got the paperwork, phoned me up. Do you want to know how you did? And yeah, go on then. And she told me I'd passed, and I remember I was shoeing a grey horse on a yard that I don't go to anymore, and I thought, yeah, the world's going to change now. You watch this. Gradually, it dawned on me that I was still shoeing the same horses in largely the same way as I always had. And,
Right. Yeah.
And then the same with the fellowship, really. But that process was grueling. Paid a chap, Paul, who's a lecturer at Myerscough. Very, very grateful to him for his intelligence, and he coached me by Zoom once a week. We had a session, and I'd try and turn the lesson that he gave me into a PowerPoint presentation so that I had them gradually building up.
Right.
Yeah, Paul was really good for that, but I did the forging off my own back. So it was the first time I'd ever done an exam without the structure of a course.
Okay.
I went along to the exam, chose to do both modules because it's divided into two.
Mm-hmm.
Chose to do both modules at once, and I was pretty confident I'd nail the practical, and I was a bit shaky on the theory. That day I didn't nail the practical. I sailed through the theory.
Really?
I turned up, and I've never been nervous in exams before, and I got there and I was in a state. Yeah, it was tough. And at the start of the exam, when I had this chestnut thoroughbred, needed to put some medial spiral lift bar shoes on it, big frog, I just made terrible decisions. And that nervous state for the first 15, 20 minutes. And, I was so well drilled with my forging. I knew after this heat I should be here, and I'm 2, 3, 4 heats behind where I should be. And I'm thinking, what's going on?
Which just piles on the panic.
It was just getting worse and worse. And then I'd chosen the wrong section. And because of that, I hadn't allowed for the frog to be recessed in the bar. And oh gosh. I mean, to be fair, this thing was landing really heavy on the outside before I shot it.
Right.
And it trotted up and it was landing much more level.
Right.
But yeah, I wouldn't have passed it. So I walked out of that absolutely gutted, but that was in the morning. And I thought, they're never going to pass that. If they do, really, I'd be surprised and might devalue the FW in my opinion anyway. So I walked out of it, and I remember it was at Hereford College, and the whole college was shut down. And went and had a shower, and they were cold because the heating wasn't on. Went back into the classroom. I thought, I've mucked this up anyway. So it sort of gave me that bit of confidence to just, sod it, go for it, do your best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, Dr. Curtis was one of my examiners that day. I think my paper was written a little bit. So what does that mean? The examiners were sat there a little bit. What does that mean? And you start with your paper, sort of the 20-minute presentation on it. And that allowed me to really give the usefulness of the product I was trying to test. Yeah, I got through that, and that seemed to go all right. And then they gave me a surprise lecture, and that went all right. I'll never forget it. My father was ringing me while you get 1 hour to prepare a 20-minute lecture on any subject.
Yeah.
And I was in a bit of a flap because I'd using Paul's lessons and some of my own work, I'd prepared all these lectures on pathologies, all these lectures on anatomy, and I got grip and purchase. What are they? And I'm thinking, nice one.
Psych.
So, yeah, that was awesome. I had all these things I could just draw from. And so I had to start from scratch. But actually, it was really good because it made me think, and it was something that I'd never really considered. But you just take it back to your day-to-day life with a little bit more science and anatomy knowledge. And so, yeah, and then I went back 6 months later and, passed the practical, which was a big relief.
Now, were you as nervous going in, or because you'd had that experience before, you were able to?
Yeah, I went in, and I was a really good friend of mine, Greg Elliott. He struck for me both times. And the first time, I can't even remember what I was saying to him. Second time round, I knew what I was doing. I'd had another 6 months of practice, and I was taking it alongside Philip Martin, who is another good friend of mine. And I popped up to his forge, and we'd had a practice together, and we did loads practice, and I was just in a much better place. Instead of concentrating on my shoemaking, I think I'd concentrated on the process before, during, and after the exam.
Okay.
So, I was so well drilled on where I should be at each heat the previous time. This second time, I was drilled on where I should be each time. I was still pretty nervous. You have to trot the horse up and then have a discussion with the vet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. It just took me 5-10 minutes. I had to ask the poor chap who was trotting the horse up to trot it again because I hadn't quite computed what it was doing the first time around.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just had that process sort of sorted in my mind and managed to get through it. You know, it wouldn't have been a world-beating job that I did. I wouldn't claim to do. Most of my shoeing at home doesn't revolve around bar shoes. I do a lot of remedial work and I do a lot of fixing of problems and things, and I tend to use pads and packers and achieve the same sort of things as bar shoes do. But personally, I just think they're a bit more moldable and kinder to the foot. So I did have to take myself out of my normal shoeing.
Right.
And I think that's always a bit tricky as well. But
yeah,
no, it went all right. Apart from with about 10, 15 minutes to spare, I'd fitted both my shoes and the shoe was pretty black heat and I'm just leathering the toe. Never done it in my whole career. And I hit the anvil with my hammer instead of the shoe, and it bounced up, whacked me square in the forehead, and there's blood everywhere. My shoes fitted. I'd worked to this point. I was absolutely distraught, and managed to find an eye patch in a first aid kit. The registrar gave me 3 minutes. She said, "You've got 3 minutes, sort yourself out." Found an eye patch and just tied it around. Looked like the Karate Kid finishing my exam. It's a trail of blood to and from the horse, and it was a bit of a car crash, but luckily they let me finish the job. Yeah, it was a big part of my life actually for 18 months, 2 years. And I became obsessed with it, and very grateful to my wife and my kids for putting up with me, to be honest, while I was doing it. But yeah, it means a lot to me, and I think I'd be lying if I said respect among my peers is big to me. You know, I don't do things just to get respect, but I value what my customers think of me. But you know, you look at the side of my van, Tom Smith, FWCF, GradDIP, ELR, Master Farrier. They all home in on the Master Farrier, which you know, it is a meaningful thing in itself. But if you've got a higher exam, you just pay £200 to the Worshipful Company or whatever the figure is, and get a signature from a vet and a liveryman and an examiner or an FW, and you've got the title. So actually, out of all of them, it's the one that I've grafted the least for.
Right.
There's an element of pride to have in it, and I'm immensely grateful for my apprenticeship, for you know, the type of work that I've been allowed to do through my customers, and the sort of the people that I've met that have inspired me on the way to getting it, because it's not something you do without their help. Even if they don't realize they're doing it, they're getting you there.
Yeah. That one especially seems to be it takes a village situation.
It does. And I've been to many presentation as the chair of the FRC to go to the diploma presentations to the lads and the ladies that have passed their exams, and I get to give a 5-minute speech or something on how inspiring they are to me. And genuinely, I remember that day when I passed my diploma, and I've been so lucky that actually I can stand there and see them going through the process, and you know, the guys that are getting their associates, and the few people that have got their fellowships when I've been there as well. It's been, every one of them is inspiring in different ways, because you know the hard work they put
into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds soppy and it sounds a little bit over the top, but people would sound disingenuous when they said it. Now I'm there, I believe it, and you can actually see it. And
well, you're not the first person to say that even it takes another FW to truly appreciate that you're an FW.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows how much you went through than the person who also went through that.
Completely, yeah. It's a small club. It gets added to every now and then. But yeah, you know, on paper, the exam is what it is. But actually, it's that process of getting there and doing it while you're running a business, doing it while you're trying to look after your family. And my first exam was actually cancelled because COVID. 2 weeks or something like that before the exam, so it was a bit of a false start, and
which is frustrating, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you know, actually, it gave me an extra 6 months to still prepare and fail. So, who knows? I probably would have failed both parts if I'd done it then. I don't know.
Is there anything that you're aiming for next? Because you are somebody who keeps focusing on the next thing. Where do you go from there?
It's tricky. At the moment, where my work on the Registration Council, the Farriers Registration Council, sort of keeps me occupied. I've sort of put some of that sort of thing on the back burner a little bit. I've gone through some changes with my business lately as well. I worked for about 12 years with a great friend of mine, Joe. He started as my apprentice and then he stayed on and then he went through as an associate while he worked for me as well. And, we raised a few apprentices between us and he went on his own 18 months ago or so. And so that sort of started my business changing, not necessarily through my choice, but, as it goes. Yeah, so I'm now sort of downsizing the business and actually I'm finding a bit of a love for it in that respect. So I think my registration council work is what I'm sort of focused on in the here and now. That comes to an end at the end of next year, end of 24. The change in the business is actually a good focus for me at the moment. I'm clawing back a bit of time instead of shoeing a lot of horses as a group of us and managing people, which are probably never the easiest part of my role, if you like. So yeah, I get to now spend a bit of time. If I want to analyze a horse, and I can spend some time analyzing my horse. I've got one apprentice. She's awesome. She actually inspires me sometimes. She challenges me. She's not backward in coming forward, and she'll quite often say, well, why have you done that? Not just around farriery, just in life as well. And actually I've learned a lot from spending time with her. But yeah, I definitely want to focus on something once my time on the council's done.
Okay.
I don't know what it'll be yet though. I want to learn a helicopter pilot.
Really?
Whether I manage it or not, I don't know.
That sounds like that would be a pretty decent challenge.
I like the idea of it. It's sort of 3D driving, and you have to be analytical. You have to be, in control of yourself.
Yeah.
To do it. I think when things are going fine, it's probably not that important to be control of yourself. But when things start going wrong, I can imagine that's where you need to be able to master yourself and
calm under
I don't
pressure.
think necessarily I've always been brilliant at that. So it'd be a good challenge. But
well, you alluded to your time on the FRC. So I didn't realize it's a set term and then you can't go back on, or it's just you've decided that you're not going to reapply?
No, so I joined, I think it was in 2017, just as the Act had been updated. And so my first, you can do 2 terms.
Oh, okay.
I got elected by the profession. You say by the profession, I think a very small percentage of people actually vote, Okay. So I got elected for my first term, and that was slightly shortened just to make it tidy to fit in with the new updated version of the Act. I suppose it would have been 2020. The new election came around, and there's 4 farriers elected from within the profession for the council, and only 4 of us put ourselves forward, which, out of 2,700, give or take, farriers is disappointing, although it did mean I was elected without
without contest.
So that's a 4-year term, and that comes to pass at the end of 24. We've got a few months left of this year, and then 1 year left. It's been a challenge. I'm a farrier, and I've had to learn to operate, and I'm still learning to operate in a very different setting from chairing meetings. Farriers don't tend to have board meetings, do they? And
No. Just with themselves.
Exactly. I think for the tax man, I have to write a form saying that I have a board meeting once a year for my limited company. And
Right. Yeah.
we open and close it, and that's it. You know?
Yeah.
So no, I've really enjoyed the process, and there's some inspiring people actually. Regulation's not something that everyone appreciates, buys into, likes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You've taken on a role where you are clearly going to have enemies.
Yeah.
No matter what. And even people that may have known you before who already have a certain interpretation of what regulation is and do not want it or whatever. So what made you decide to go that route?
Probably being a bit too honest here, but I actually got accused of some bad behaviour by a customer. Long and the short of it is, my version of events obviously differed to hers, but my version of events was that I was faced with this horse that was getting increasingly poorly behaved. I didn't handle the situation perfectly, but long and the short of it was, I said to her, I'm not going to shoe for you anymore. 2 weeks later, I get a letter from the Registration Council solicitors saying, we're investigating you. Give your version of events. I gave my version of events. So it goes to an investigating committee, which is a paper-based exercise. Then if they decide that they can't make a judgment or that it needs to be investigated further, or it probably is a case of serious professional misconduct, it goes to the disciplinary committee. So anyway, mine got referred to the disciplinary committee. And at the time, the hearings were in London. And you go up, you walk into this room, and I've never been exposed to anything like it. It was, a panel of 7 people, I think it was, and a legal assessor. You're sat there against, the other side of the room is the people making the case against you.
Oh, okay.
So they're there for the Farriers Registration Council. There's a barrister, solicitor. I'd turned up with a barrister and a solicitor, and there was a lot of money being spent, and my professional career was on the line. And actually, I got cleared of everything from a serious professional misconduct point of view. It took about a year, start to finish. It was just under a year. Yeah, so because I'm a bit of a control freak and I like to analyse things, I tend to, I sat up for hours at night. I mean, it was probably one of the worst years of my life.
I bet, yeah.
I remember in the process, my daughter was born. She was born in December, and the hearing had been scheduled for February. And I remember literally she was born and she was this tiniest little beautiful thing. And the midwife was dealing with my wife. And I had Lily on my chest, and she just looked up. I'm getting all emotional now thinking about it. And she just looked up, and I thought, geez, I could get struck off. I could lose my ability to provide for you, and you're seconds old. And I just was super driven to give a good account of myself. And as I've learned, I did do things wrong, and I analysed myself, and it's changed the way I behave at work. Still make mistakes. Everyone does. So anyway, I went through that process, and I wouldn't say I enjoyed the learning about it because I knew I was at the sharp end of it.
Right, yeah.
But actually, faith in the process. A lot of people don't have faith in the process because they've never seen it. I certainly didn't. I knew what I knew before I went into that disciplinary hearing, but I didn't have faith in the panel to be able to understand that, believe me, and come to the right decision, or as I thought it was the right decision. And they did. And I'm very grateful to them. There was a vet on the panel. There was farriers, lay people. It's largely how it's constituted now. And so anyway, I got cleared, and I went back to work, my day-to-day life, sort of this big weight off my mind. I'd actually been sticking aside some money as well, just in case I got struck off. So I went and bought a flash car with it. It's about the only time I've ever stood up to my wife. I remember going home and said, I'm going to buy an Audi R8. She said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. No, you're not. I had one by the following weekend. And I really enjoyed the process. And then because I wasn't at the sharp end of it anymore, I think the election scheme came around not long after. And I thought, actually, do you know what? There's things I didn't like about that process that I, as a working farrier, think they should do better. They could do better. I thought rather than become a keyboard warrior, I'd sort of actually chuck myself in and go up. And I got elected. Again, I mean, that first time round, I think it might have even been unopposed then as well.
Okay.
And it got elected, went up for my induction, and, went there. I was determined to not have a chip on my shoulder. I was determined to not have this sort of underlying agenda that a lot of people have had that have shared an experience like I did.
Right.
And, there was things I didn't like, but I was willing to learn. And actually, I spent some time with David Greenwood, the registrar, and, I asked him some pressing questions, and he just sat there and he worked through the law. He worked through the Registration Act that is the law that governs it, and told me why we do what we do, why we have to do certain things in the way we do. And I went to a few council meetings. At the time there was 3 a year, now there's 2 and a training day. I gradually learned the ropes, challenged some points, and it's a really different way of working, and I enjoyed it, and that's what made me run for the second time. And I think when I was elected, I was still, just a member of the council, and then the election came up for deputy chair and the chair. And David Hall had run for the chair. And I thought, Farrier was crying out in Britain for an intelligent, articulate, capable Farrier to chair the council. David Hall was that. And I thought, do you know what? I'd like to support him in that role. I don't want to be the chair.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can support him. I can back him up when he needs it. So I ran for the deputy chair and got elected from amongst the council. The peers in the council elected me and ticked along quite nicely with David as the chair, and I mucked in when I needed to, and then Farrier, as only Farrier can, sort of turned on David. You know, Facebook warriors, and I, to this day, I still don't completely understand all that he went through. The poor chap, you know, he made me so angry. Farrier wanted the intelligent Farrier to be running their regulator. You know, the politically aware, the sensible, articulate guy that he was. Yeah, I think Farrier on Facebook in Britain saw an opportunity and lynched the guy. It makes me so angry.
I'm not familiar with this part of the story. What?
It sort of played out in the background, and personally, like I say, I wouldn't want to speak for David. I know he put up with a lot, and a lot of it, I think it largely revolved around, we charge an annual fee in Britain to maintain your status on the register. Basically, it had been too cheap for far too long. The finance committee, as it was then, I didn't sit on it, but various members did, and they just kept running the numbers and they weren't stacking up. And you know, because we're a very legal-based entity, to bring a case properly costs money for barristers and solicitors and the like, and all the legal advice around the acts cost money, and they just weren't stacking up. So our fee had to go up. David was the front man at the time.
Right.
You know, there was other things at play. There was a few, in my opinion, bad actors on Facebook, social media, and in the world of Farrier that were saying quite unpleasant things. David, with my full blessing and respect, decided it was best to step down and, you know, save himself the hassle. And he did, but that sort of lurched me as a deputy chair. You know?
Right.
I thought, I just in a support role, I'm happy here. Yeah, I got pushed into, well, not pushed, you know, the procedure was that I took over the reins for the time being until we got the next election sorted and the chair replaced. And as time went by, I wouldn't say I became comfortable in the role, but I acclimatized to it. And I thought, well, I'll throw my hat into the ring. There's so many capable people on the council, is what I've learned. And the council was in a very good place with intelligent, sensible people on it. Had they not been like that, I wouldn't have put my name in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone around there is there for, the council is there for the good of the horse, the welfare of the horse, and public, the horse owning public and the public at large. You know, that's what regulators do. They're not there for the people in the profession. And everyone there was mindful of this. And you know, there's some really good guys on the council. You know, Derek Gardner, for example, you know, he's been there, done that. He understands Farrier probably more than I ever will. I couldn't name everyone, or I shouldn't name everyone, but everyone there brings something to the table. So I thought, you know what, chuck my hat in. If they want me, they'll have me. And yeah, they had me. You know, it's been challenging. And like you say, there's people that have just got a formed opinion. It doesn't matter what you say to them.
Yeah, some are never going to change.
No, and I respect that. I think it's up to them. What does upset me is when people think they know something, but they don't have enough information, so they just make it up. They add to it, but I think I wouldn't dare compare myself to any politician in Britain or anywhere else in the world, but I think I can understand how politicians get themselves in all sorts of trouble, you know, because there's just one clumsy word here and then it escalates. And I've tried. I've not always necessarily done it, but I've tried to just always do what I think's right, understand the law and the process, and try and do the thing that I think is right and honest. And if that means articulating things people don't want to hear to them, then so be it. But one of my biggest reasons for joining was I thought communication between the regulator and Farrier, and communication between the regulator and the public, is not always smooth.
I was going to ask you what one of the things were that you wanted to change from the inside.
I mean, a lot of it I've learned that it is how it is because it
For a
needs to
reason.
be.
Right.
For example, one of the complaints I always had, and a lot of people have voiced to me, is when we send out the bills every year to renew your registration. There's legal speak that basically says failure to pay this means that you will be removed from the Farriers Register. Now, it needs to be plain English because it needs to be understood. We can't have people saying, "Oh, I didn't realise that." But it does, it gets people's back up. So I think I try, whenever I get the opportunity, I try and just do Farrier talk, try and talk normally and sort of bridge that gap.
Right. Yeah.
So that you do understand it. And I wouldn't say I love the work, but I've really enjoyed it. It's really challenged me, continues to challenge me. I wish more people would get involved, if I'm honest. There's so many people that are happy to shout from the sidelines. And we need people shouting from the sidelines. You know, we need input, but we also need people that are willing to stick their head above the old the trenches every now and then and
get
involved. Stuck in. I'm grateful to those people that do.
Well, we got to witness just before we started this, pressed record and started this, we were talking about walking a tightrope, and you have to watch the words you're saying and everything else. And any word you say, there are people in the audience waiting for you to muck up so that they can pounce. So I watched that firsthand. I got to experience that with that forum that we witnessed last night and that you were on the panel for. And maybe people will disagree with me, but I thought you did a great job of explaining the facts, but doing it in a way that people will understand. You didn't use a bunch of legalese and you bridged that gap, I thought. But for yourself, what was that experience like? Was it nerve-wracking, or are you used to this?
Well, the tightrope is one that I'm quite aware of. And, you know, I have got it in me to use clumsy words every now and then. And
as all humans are. Yeah.
But I just think try and be normal and human. I have to process the information that I'm given from the council, from all the different involved parties in it. And a bit like trying to teach an apprentice, gradually over the years, you get better at it. You know, you understand if I explain it from this direction, it doesn't work. You can come at it from a different way. But when I was young in the teaching the apprentices side of things, I just didn't have that ability. And I think with the legal side of things and this tightrope is, I know I'll muck it up somewhere. But I think if you're human and you're honest and you let the facts do the talking and try and break them down in a way that I would have appreciated them broken down, then, you know, hopefully most people will forgive you if you cock up every now and then. I think it's only going to happen. And do you know what? This whole weekend at Focus has been great. I think I've been able to walk around. I've had literally yesterday, Saturday, I managed to do 2 laps of the area. I mean, it's a big, vast area, but I only managed 2 laps, and I don't think they were 2 complete laps because every couple of steps you take, you get stopped. And I've not been a big farrier in the world, in Britain, you know, in farrier world. I'm not one of the big names, and so it's a little bit alien for me to sort of be
stopped like that.
Yeah, be stopped, and I'm under no illusion. People are stopping me because of the position I've got, rather than who or what I am. The position I'm in now, not necessarily the position I've got. But yeah, I think if I can do that communication with the profession, then I'm chuffed to bits. And it's not always comfortable. You know, there's a bit of chest poking here and there. There's a bit of, why the hell are you doing this? But if I've got that knowledge and I can actually say to someone, this is why we're doing it, and this is why we've been inclined to do it this way, then, and they can go away and actually process it, then I'm chuffed to bits. And we do the same with the public. You know, the FRC has a stand, for example, at Your Horse Live, which is a big convention actually in the same building as Focus is in.
Right.
But it takes over all the halls. It's even bigger than Focus. You know, we get there and we stand and we speak to a lot of horse owners and the public, and that's really meaningful in a different way. But yeah, if I'm honest, you know, I know I'll cock up one day, and I hope that it's not monumental. I hope it doesn't cause any problems when I do. And I hope that if I do and when I do, people will forgive me.
Right. You mentioned politicians, and you'll get those politicians who never seem to mess up, but it's because everything they say doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah, so scripted.
Yeah. And by the end of it, it's so vague, and you really come away from whatever they've said without learning anything new. And you took on the position of, listen, I know there's confusion out there. This is what I need to explain to you. And you can't do that without actually sort of putting your neck out a bit and saying the real words. I don't know if you want to cover this. In the whole situation going on now, is there anything that has been out there as misinformation that you wish people knew?
There's been a lot of misinformation, and actually I tackled one or two of the creators of that misinformation in conversations this last couple of days. But the first and foremost, I think the accusation, if you like, or the suggestion that apprentice welfare has not been considered in the issue that we're facing it's just downright wrong, really. The beginning of the issues around the exams, in the middle of it and at the end, that was what was in my mind, the whole council's mind, and the profession at large's mind, I'm sure, as well. I'm a bit embarrassed to admit it maybe, but I chaired several meetings on this at the council, and I made sure that we had the whole council, not just a few members of it. It was the whole council, and we discussed it at length, massively at length. And we came up with plans and ideas and different suggestions. But the final meeting where we did agree that we had no other option other than to withdraw approval of the exam from the Worshipful Company of Farriers as a route to entry into the register was a massive meeting for me. I wouldn't say I was overly emotional as such, but at the end of it, I was just exhausted. I don't even remember what happened afterwards. I thanked everyone for attending the meeting, and then I just sat there with my head in my hands for a couple of minutes. I just thought, I know what impact this is going to have on the apprentices, on the profession, on people that want to become ATFs and do their associate exam. And people are entitled to their opinions, and I think especially on something like this, they're entitled to be passionate about their opinions. But I think some of the posts on Facebook in particular have been created with a lack of knowledge of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a level of irony in it that they're levelling the accusation that we've not considered their welfare, but some of these posts are actually probably really adding to the apprentices' lack of knowledge of what's going on and their concerns and their worries around it. So
right. Yeah.
It's always difficult because we need passionate people. We need people to be able to stand up and actually ask the questions. They might not be comfortable, and when people are in my position, they're not always comfortable. But we just need to stick to the facts, I think. And that's what I get frustrated with, is when
those get distorted.
Well, they get distorted or facts get completely created. It's an interesting sort of way of doing stuff, but
some people thrive on that.
I think they do. And there's a I'm not on Facebook, refuse to be on any of those social medias, and I can see it's a valuable tool, but I can also see it's quite detrimental at times. And
I wondered that because I wanted to reach out to you before coming here, and I was like, I can't find them anywhere.
No.
And then I realized, well, your position probably isn't fun on Facebook, regardless.
I dabbled when I passed the grad, or just before I passed the GradDIP. I sort of launched a consultancy side of my business, and I dabbled with that, and I don't think that's been updated for about 5 years, 6 years or something. And it wasn't me really that was doing it in the first place. And no, so I've never really been inclined to go on there. I'd much rather speak to someone or have a text message or
right. Yeah. Well, on to lighter things, in your regular practice, is it eventers that you said?
No,
I
sort of inadvertently went towards shoeing dressage horses mainly.
Dressage, okay, yeah.
About 3 or 4 years ago, I got asked to just go in and by a vet to go in and see to a racehorse. And then, that went well. The trainer said, come and have a cup of tea, Tom. I think it's about the only cup of tea he's ever offered me.
Funny that.
I actually said, no, I'm not a racehorse farrier. But I did think about it, and Joe that worked with me at the time, we spoke about it, and we took the yard on, and I love it. So yeah, it's dressage and racehorses. I tend to be jumping racehorses. So they're a little bit older, a little bit kinder to you generally.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah.
I like the challenge of the two. Dressage, I've got one particular yard that sort of shaped my career. They were on their way up through the ranks in the dressage world, and again, actually, it was the same vet that pushed me into the race yard.
Really? Okay.
He asked me to go in there. Yeah, it was a steep learning curve. I'd been used to just shoeing horses for day-to-day work, and suddenly trying to figure out how they worked on the surface and the type of shoes, and that was really good, really interesting for me. I looked up greatly to people like Hayden Price, for example, that had done a lot of research and a lot of work on this type of horses. And we watched those move, not all the time. I'd be lying if I said we trotted them up all the time, but we trot them up. And you can gradually start to build this idea between hoof distortions and the way a horse is moving and loading and landing and working in general. And for years and years, I spent still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think
we'll never get there.
Yeah, everybody is.
When the racehorses came along, they really interested me because you don't take them out of the box, very often. You shoe them in the stable.
Yeah.
You shoe them with small aluminium shoes. We're really lucky. The yard I look after, they've got their own gallops. So the horses never go on the road, really. They don't wear their shoes out. So they train and race in the same shoes.
Okay.
But yeah, you see the distortions and you see the same problems, but they're just in different ways on a really different type of horse foot. I absolutely loved just trying to figure out the challenge between linking those hoof distortions and the way that horse is probably moving and the shoe wear. And sometimes you feel blessed that things come along at the right time in your career.
Right.
If I'd have come across those racehorses 10 years earlier, I'd have done a terrible job. I would have done a terrible job. And they wouldn't have appreciated what I did to them, and I probably wouldn't have appreciated them. But actually, Chris, the trainer there, he's really good as well. He'll tell me if the horse has a problem, but he just says, "You go sort it."
Mm-hmm. He has that trust,
and it's great. And actually, I really bought into the yard. I really enjoy the people there. I ended up buying a horse, so I give him half of what I earn back. Yeah, and. But no, it's really added a different element to my life professionally, and I'm into it. And they're really challenging. And I'm hoping now I've cleared up a bit of time with my business in my diary, I can do a bit more research to understand them. I'd like to try, and not many people bridge that gap between dressage and racehorses because they're probably about as far apart shoeing styles as you can get. I can see a lot of dressage applications. Obviously, you'd have to change them and refine them, but working on the thoroughbreds, understanding how they interact with the ground, understanding, if you've got a really sloppy racetrack, I'd love to do some research about trying to keep the horse on top of it rather than sinking into it. And I like it. And I can see it's sort of, it's where my career might end up sort of going, is understanding those things a bit more and trying to.
And sharing that.
Yeah. Well, sharing it and just sort of refining it and understanding it. I think, sharing it as well. I am trying to get out and do a bit more sort of presenting to people, to farriers and non-farriers. And I think it's something that the profession lacks a little bit. We've got a few main people that present, and I've learned a lot from those few main people. But I think we as a profession in general, we're undervalued a little bit. Certainly in Britain, probably worldwide, what we bring to the table, especially with performance horses. I love the opportunity to get out and just talk to horse owners and say to them, walk them through the journey of a farrier and what a farrier brings to the table. And it's amazing at the start of the process. You ask him, what are the 3 things that make a good farrier? He answers his phone, doesn't charge me too much, and he doesn't lose shoes. Yeah. And actually, not one of those makes a good farrier. and then so you walk them through this journey for 45 minutes, and then you say to them, so what makes a good farrier? And then suddenly it's someone that, cares for my horse and is educated and wants to keep it sound. Someone that sort of turns up regularly when they need to turn up and does what they're supposed to do and works with me for the improvement of my horse. And I love that. I think that's brilliant. I think we need to do a bit more of that. as a profession. It's a tough gig. It's not a sexy subject, is it?
No.
I think learning what I'm learning in the registration council world and learning what I'm learning from a shoeing point of view and meeting people, I think that's where I'd love to go as well with those sort of new skills that I'm developing.
Very cool.
It's good fun.
Yeah. I know it isn't necessarily always the sexy job. Everybody recognizes that you need people like you who must enjoy it to some extent, or you wouldn't. Even though you're a minority, it's still, it's going to make a difference. Like, all those horse owners are now appreciating the appropriate things, and hopefully will tell that to their friends, because the farrier world, I think it keeps coming up around here that I've heard over the weekend, just that, is it in jeopardy? Like, if the public doesn't have faith in it and faith in the process and everything else, like, that subject kept coming up. So if you can educate them in the whole concept of, this is what you want us to be skilled, you want us to not just be the cheap guy. Yeah, it just creates more respect, and then hopefully keeps the industry at a high level.
And we got to do it from within as well, though. I think this is the other problem. Right?
Yeah.
I make sweeping sort of presumptions about coming over to, your side of the pond when I come over for the Hoof Care Summit and things like that. But just talking to the American, Canadian farriers, they're ever so positive amongst themselves. And I think one of the biggest problems we got in Britain is we just talk each other down. We're such a small little island, and there probably is a finite amount of work, and we're all desperate to pay our mortgage and feed our kids, that sometimes we think we need to get one up on the guy that's competition by putting him down.
Right.
I really disagree with that. I think we need to elevate the whole profession. And actually, Billy Crothers, I was really grateful to him. He phoned me up and he gave me the opportunity to talk at his last seminar. You could see I walked on cost and understanding your value and perception, or something was the sexy title. And you see all these farriers, they'd listen to Jay Tovey, who's an inspiring speaker. They'd listen to Ian Gajek, who, equally inspiring and, very skillful around the anvil. And then little old me wanders up. I was like, right. And actually, once they'd understood, I'd engaged with them, and we were able to talk about things that impact on every single one of us, and the perception and the value that we need to give our services. We don't do, we don't foster that value. Do you know what? I couldn't get away from the place. I was walking towards the tea urn after I'd finished, and they were pinning me down left, right, and it was great. It was inspiring. And if half of the farriers there, I don't know how many were there, 80, 100 people maybe. If half of the guys that were there went away and just started telling their customers, this is why I do it like this, and this is what I'm looking for. And I'm not being a pain in the ass when I ask you to trot your horse up and it, wears you out.
Right. Yeah.
I'm actually trying to understand how your horse is moving so I can serve it better. And yeah, you could see just a few light bulbs coming on. And I think it's something I want to work with Ben Benson and all the rest of the BFBA. I'm trying to get us out there talking to farriers, and as farriers talking to horse owners, and just giving them that bit of information. Because I think there's this downward spiral. You charge less because you want to get a bit of extra work, and then you're miserable. So you, instead of having to shoe 5 a day, you're having to shoe 10 a day. You're miserable. You're knackered. The sums aren't adding up. You're wondering why you're going to work. You're getting more miserable. So your customers don't value, so they go to someone else that smiles a bit more. And, before you know it, there's this downward spiral. And I'm as guilty of it as anyone else is. But
I've been in that. Yep.
I think it's the next journey the profession needs to go on. I don't think it's a choice. Right. I think at the moment people are choosing whether to go on it or not. But I think we need to protect our profession, and in doing so, protect the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's some not such good actors out there that would love to seize the opportunity that if Farrier implodes,
right,
they'll jump in and fill that void. Some people will be doing it well, but I think some people would probably fill that void very badly, and the horse would be the loser. Yeah, we've got the chance, we've got the opportunity, and I think we can
That's
do
right
it
here. Yeah. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Spencer and his team at Out West Design and Fabrication, where they build Farrier bodies, custom interiors, and vet boxes, and just about anything else you can come up with. I have seen many of their finished products and spoken to many of their happy clients. So happy, in fact, that it inspired me to use them for my next project. Check them out on Facebook at Out West Design and Fabrication. This portion of the podcast is called the Stratum Tectorium. These are the short answer, surface stuff questions, but it's okay if the guest wants to go deeper. Enjoy. Favorite book?
I would say it's the Count of Monte Cristo. I must have read that 5 times. It's a long read.
Oh, I'm trying to think of who else named that exact book.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Oh, I think it's Cody Gregory really likes that book.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We've had that conversation about it recently.
I love everything from the language in it. You know, it's instead of saying you're 64, it's 4 and 60 years. But also, it's got a bit of everything. It's really descriptive. There's revenge, there's fortune, a bit of politics,
It's got it all.
It's awesome. Yeah. Good book.
Favorite brand of nails?
I think a mustard.
What shoe sizes do you usually carry, or lengths?
I don't tend to make too many myself. So in the dressage world, I would say it's around a European sort of 3, 4 size.
Okay.
The feet are usually 1s and 2s, but the shoes go on this 3s and 4s maybe.
Right.
Thank God for grinders. And then in the racing that I do, because they're a bit bigger where they're jumpers, it tends to be a sort of a 7 is the most common race plate.
Okay. Favorite make of rasp?
Oh, I've dabbled with all sorts, but it's got to be the Blue Tang Hella Legend.
Okay. Do you have a dream Farrier rig?
Not really. I like my VW Transporter van.
Mm-hmm.
I used to always dream of having a pickup, and I had a pickup for a very short time, and I struggled working out of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Went back to the van very quickly. They're good. They're just no good in the slippery stuff.
Yeah, right.
I just don't go anywhere slippery.
Yeah, it probably keeps you out of some bad yards.
Yeah, it does.
Favorite rounding hammer?
I have had a Bruce Wilcox since my apprenticeship. In fact, I've got 3. So I had one, which was quite at the time, was quite heavy. I think it's about 2 3/4.
Oh, wow.
Like they're all a little bit random, aren't they?
Right.
The old Bruce Wilcox. And I actually managed to get Bruce's phone number when I was an apprentice, and I phoned him up and I ordered a smaller one. So I've got Big Brucey and Little Brucey.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got a clipping one as well that he sent me for free.
No way.
And I still clip every shoe with that I clip. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Favorite type of bar stock to work with?
Just trying to avoid it now, to be honest. I don't have the wrists for it, but no, I do 1.38 inch, you call it 3/8.
Yeah.
By 1.
Yeah.
For flat, and I think concave 7/8, 3/8.
Okay.
It's just a good all round section.
Right. Favorite pastime after work?
Yeah, I'm starting to try to rediscover some pastimes. But recently, my son's been playing cricket for many years, and he's pretty tidy at it. And I've played 2 games now.
Oh,
I was so excited. I was like a little kid. I didn't sleep the night before, and I didn't sleep the night after.
Really?
I was like, yeah.
Huh?
And then, so I think cricket's my new favourite pastime.
That's one sport I have never sat down to understand.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get somebody to explain it to me.
Do you know, I think that was the beauty. I grew up with it, or, as my son grew up, I can't remember how old he was when he started, but he was only little. Started scoring matches. So you have to pay attention and learn the rules. And gradually I've learned the rules, but the problem I've got now is I know exactly what I should be doing. I just sort of don't do it. All the things I've been grilling the son for, like, and his team as well. The poor lads. I've the under 13s team that he plays for. Why did you let that ball go? And then it comes flying towards me, and I do exactly what I've been grilling them for. So I'm hoping to improve on that.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good game. Good game.
Favorite brand of keg shoe?
Concave. I really like Handmade Shoes, Champion shoes. It's just a good solid shoe. And I like the way the section increases as the size increases. It's really subtle, but it just seemed to have got it about right. You know, if anyone knows concave, it's Billy, I suppose, isn't
right.
it?
Yeah.
And then, the 3/4 fullards that I use a mix of Kirkharts and Mustads.
Okay.
Depending on sort of the section that I feel the horse and the surface it's working on needs. It's sort of a mix and match and trial and error. I just don't admit that.
Jim Blurton said the exact same thing.
Did he?
Yeah, like each one has a specific foot that he likes it for. So he keeps, like, he would use all of them.
Yeah. It's a pain. You know, you have to keep
Yeah, I
extra
know,
racking in your van. But
yeah.
genuinely seen the width of the section. I always go 8 mil, 5/16 sort of on the dressage, because I don't think we want to lift them off the ground. I think we want to engage the whole foot. But yeah, that width of the shoe it does have more of a difference than than I would ever care to admit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially now I've been seeing it with the hoofbeat system
Right.
and things like that. You get to actually really see the stability on the surface and you know, the time from landing to being stable, and the sections have a big bearing on that. Sometimes
So have you found that you've gone broader because of what you've learned?
sometimes,
Or-
but
okay.
actually on one or two, my sort of standard was to go as broad as I could.
Right.
You know, when I was earlier on in my dressage shoeing career,
Right.
and then actually now I mix and match depending on what the horse wants. Sometimes I go broad in front and narrow behind because the foot appreciates it, or sometimes I do it because of the movement of the horse. And
Right.
support becomes, in my opinion, sort of destructive sometimes because support turns into leverage,
Mm-hmm.
but it sits in different places every time, and sometimes from shoeing to shoeing it changes. So
Right. Yeah.
it's a minefield, and I sort of pretend I know how I'm walking it, but you try and muddle your way through.
Right. I think the key is just constantly observing and adjusting.
And feedback from, you got good riders on these horses. They feel things. You know, sometimes you don't even need to see the horse. You can just talk to them and get their feedback.
Yeah. You know
And,
what you're.
And
gonna see.
it was actually a Grand Prix horse called Delegate that I shod one time, and one particular move, I think it was the half pass. He was great going to the left, terrible to the right. And I watched him move, and this was long before the hoofbeat system came around. I just thought, let's just try it. He looked like he was just lacking stability with that one leg coming under his body. So I gave him, it wouldn't been any more than 5 mil width on the outside on that limb.
Mm.
And it was immediate, the difference in him.
Hmm.
And the feedback from the rider was immediate. Something else must have changed, but literally nothing had changed because it was the same day. And I hadn't even trimmed much off the foot. It wasn't a balance issue. It was literally, let's just try the shoe in position different. And from that day on, I've been more sensitive because I would have poo-pooed that. If you'd told me it, yeah, whatever, you're seeing things.
Right.
But no, it truly did open my eyes to that sort of thing. So, yeah. That's not a very quick answer, is it?
That's why they. I always say in the intro, you can go as long or short as you want. Ideal number of horses to shoe all around in one day, on your own.
On my own, I think 5. Quite often, sneak in an extra 1 or 2, maybe.
Yeah.
Only depends as well. If it's the race horses, they're a bit quicker, and,
Right? Of course. Yeah.
But I think 5 would be my ideal.
Okay. Favorite anvil?
Do you know, my old boss used to have a Kolschwar anvil, and I just loved that thing. And I've got an old anvil that I bought probably 4/5 hand in my workshop. I don't know what it is, and I bought it, and all the edges were completely gone, and the Pritchell hole had been
circle?
welded up. No,
Oh, okay.
it wasn't even there. And
Oh,
the
wow.
Hardy hole had bits in it, and this thing was a wreck. But I tell you what, I've spent thousands of pounds on anvils for the workshop. One in particular, a competitor anvil, absolutely beautiful to look at. I still go to this old one
Really?
when I go to make sure, and the apprentices do the same.
Really?
And but I don't know what it is. But that Kolschwar anvil that my old boss had was awesome.
It's too bad they don't make them anymore.
It is.
Favorite inspirational quote?
There was one that I heard on your podcast. I was quoting it. My apprentices left, right, and centre to the point where they put it on a T-shirt and gave it to me for Christmas. It was something along the lines of excellence should be a habit, not, oh gosh, they're going to take the mickey out of me for not knowing this now.
I get another T-shirt.
Excellence should be a habit, not an exception, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the gist of it was that you should always try to exceed in what you do rather than just turning it on for individual situations. That really resonated with me. And the other one I really like is just get shit done.
Yeah. Well, back to the other one, I had a conversation with a farrier one time, and he's like, so honestly, like when you work on horses, you don't give it your all for all of them, right? Like there's certain ones, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, because if I slide on one, I think the next one I work on, I'm going to think, oh, I got away with that. I think it's a downward spiral. And he was like, you're so full of shit, blah, blah, blah. But I really think that if you're not aiming for it, even on the old guys or whatever, I mean, within reason, like if your strive for excellence is meaning that some horse is uncomfortable because you're holding it up way too long or something like that, that's different. But yeah, I think you can really go down a bad way if you start letting stuff slide.
It creeps in, doesn't it? I wouldn't be able to say that I achieve everything I want to achieve on every horse.
Same.
And I wouldn't be able to say that actually the end outcome is exactly where I want it to be.
Yeah.
But truly, and you know, to the detriment of my apprentices' welfare, sometimes I think, you know, I do expect things to be done right. I don't always get it right, but yeah, I think it is. It's important. And,
Yes.
and like you say, the problem is you slide. We as farriers, as you learn, are bouncing between the extremes, like trimming, for example. You know, you'll go to the point where you think, crikey, I've over trimmed that.
Yeah.
You know, things are sort of walking away like they're on hot coals. And then, you know, gradually over the period of 2-3 months, you'll suddenly start looking at feet thinking, ooh, it doesn't even look like I've trimmed it.
Yeah.
And then I find as you get better, those extremes gradually get narrowed closer together, but you still bounce between them. And I think if you're not analytical, if you're not trying to do your best, those extremes just stay as far apart as they were the day you started. And
Right.
and if nothing else, I think we owe it to ourselves as much as we owe it to the horse. If you're doing a job, you might as well try and do your best.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it makes me angry sometimes. I remember, I don't know, about 6 months ago, my apprentice and I were shoeing a horse on a yard, and it was a dressage horse. Actually, had been sort of sent to us by a vet, had quite a few issues going on. You know, we were never going to get it perfect again. Yeah, we were doing quite well with this horse, and we'd already, I think we'd fitted the fronts, and then it was just starting the hinds, and another farrier turned up, and I had a pair of pads to put on the shoes as well, and he was gone before we'd started clenching. And my apprentice just stood there with her mouth open. What just happened? And you think, actually, I find it really disappointing that people feel it's necessary to work like that. But I think, actually, you know, they're fulfilling a function to an extent. And
yeah, there's a certain kind of client that doesn't want me there for
they're getting
all
stuff
day.
done, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess.
It was a really good lesson for her, because I think actually, what just happened? And you know, I've seen it all. Or you think you've seen it all, and you still stand in amazement that they're in and out. But it looks like they've been in and out in 15 minutes. You know,
Right? Yeah,
it's the way of the world.
it is. Yeah, but I guess I don't know if everybody's striving for excellence. Maybe it can't happen.
We need a differentiator between people and products and services, and you know, and sometimes attitude is as much a differentiator as the end product, I think.
Yep, for sure. Do you have a Farrier Terrier?
I did. I could get all emotional talking about him.
Yeah.
He was. He came out with me from 7 weeks old. He was a Patterdale Terrier called Coco, and yeah, I've buried him under an oak tree in my garden. He died last year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I still speak to him now. I go out there, I come back. My wife leaves me be. I've had a moment, you know. Best mate I'll ever have, that dog was.
Yeah, I had the same thing and lost him last year as well.
It's tough.
Yeah, one of the Kenny Hoyle, he'd said his old dog rides behind him now in a like the Ashes do. I went home and put him in the back seat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got chickens in our garden. Stupidly, you know, I buried him near the chickens. So I have to go out and sort the chickens out every evening, and I just go out there and I tell him what's gone on today. And
Yeah,
he was the best of friends. He was. I mean, 12 or 13 when he died.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and he's just great. But I'll be honest, we've got a little dog at home now, and he's awesome. He's great fun. But I don't really take him to work because I think work's changed as well. People aren't so tolerant of dogs in their yards, and the liability again, I think.
I ended up getting another one, and she prefers my help over me. But we'll grow. It's getting better.
One of the advantages is I get greeted now when I get out rather than the dog used to get greeted.
Yeah.
And, you're here as well, eh?
Yeah, they become more of a facet of our business than we are.
Yeah.
If you're stumped on a case or need backup, who do you call?
Depends what it is, really. I've got Chris Powell, my old boss. He's sometimes a good help. Greg Elliott, especially recently, actually, I've picked his brains on one or two. He's a good guy to have. But I think through the virtue of being the position I've been in, I've actually met a lot of people. And I can call on a lot of people now, and I'm grateful to them for putting up with the phone calls sometimes. But I think it's important, and I think it's something that we as farriers don't do enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to do it if you can.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite shoe or package for a mystery lameness?
I'm a big advocate for pads, usually with a frog support, and impression material packers.
Just engaging the foot again.
Yeah, and to preserve the foot under that, I like a little slither of Magic Cushion Extreme I use, just because I think if you've got a stronger product, you might as well use it. But I don't know the difference between the two. But I must say, when I first started using Magic Cushion, there was a farrier near me that sort of put me onto it. And it's really good at just drawing a little bit of inflammation down. It doesn't fix problems, but if you've got a dressage horse that's competed on, or moved on some hard ground and its feet are a bit shaken up, it's good for that. But yeah, I think spread the load over as large an area as you can. I think if I really had my way, I'd shoe almost every horse with pads.
Yeah.
With the packer.
Just to
it works.
That. Yeah. I find the same thing, and I struggle because I don't want to be that guy who's just pushing pads on people, but I see how many do so well.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I grew up in my apprenticeship with forging our way out of problems with horses, bar shoes and things. And I can still see the beauty of bar shoes, but I just think pads are a kinder, easier way of achieving probably more. And the way I explain it to my customers, instead of just loading the rim of the foot, we're now able to load the rim, the frog, and any parts of the sole that can tolerate it. And some of these softer impression materials are really forgiving as well.
Yeah.
They've changed what I do quite substantially. And with the dressage horses, understanding how that pad also keeps them on top of the surface. Some of the horses I shoe with pads now, it's not because they need the pads from a foot point of view, but because you want to understand the ground reaction forces that the horse is experiencing and assist them in that loading, landing, taking off phase of whatever gait they're doing and the activity they're doing. And that fascinates me.
Yeah.
I'll never understand it all, but you can get a sort of a rough grasp on it. It makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. What do you use as your planner or diary?
Just my phone at the moment, the Apple calendar on there. I was quite mistrustful of it when I first started. Yeah. But Apple runs my world now. I've got my phone, I've got an iPad, I've got a MacBook, I've got one of the big desktop Macs.
Yeah.
I did have an Apple Watch, but I stopped wearing that. It kept nagging me to stand up every hour.
Mine tells me that I'm working in a loud environment all the time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd never heard that one, but
I don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah, I find it works really well. Although I must say, one of the things actually I've learned this week or spoken more about this weekend focus is that, especially with the sort of professional services I aim to give my customers, I need more of a record keeping system. And actually, there's been a few people here or a few companies here sort of demonstrating their products about how we can keep or make reports or keep notes on what we do. And I think, looking at the veterinary profession, that's what they do.
Yeah. I'm
and in fact, I think they're legally obliged to do it.
Yeah, they are.
We don't do any of that. And I think, I'll take notes, little notes here and there for my own benefit. And some of my consultancy customers, I'll send mini reports of what I've seen. But other than that, I don't do any of it. And I think some of those products I'm definitely going to go away and look at as well. In addition, and they, you know, a lot of them have calendars on, so it might be that I transition over to one of them.
Right.
Who knows?
All in one place, the one-stop shop. No, I've had the exact same thought and started. My first attempt was with an iPad, just an application with a page on it that I would just mark down notes, and I had the feet on it and would mark spots that were sensitive or whatever. If it's too cumbersome, I will fall out of the habit instantly. So now on certain horses, I take those notes, and then other ones I don't. And I feel like if I could find that right app or program, that I would do it, because I do think I'm missing out.
Well, it's certainly one that I spoke to the lady quite extensively about today. I'm quite excited about giving it a go, because that's why I've never really done it. Because like you, I dabbled with bits and bobs, and I it just creates an industry in itself. And, you know, God knows if it takes you 10 minutes more at every call, you know, before you know it, you're either chasing yourself into the dark, or you're having to cut down the number of horses you shoot each day.
Which kind of doesn't.
And that sort of defeats the object of trying to professionalize your business. So I am looking forward to giving them a go. At the moment, just keep it simple with the calendar. It's nice that it backs it up on my computer. And
right. Well, you have all the other things. Yeah,
exactly.
Favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
Oh, yeah. I big advocate for a sports massage. I've got a good friend of mine, actually. She looks after me in a sports massage. And actually, several years ago now, I was thinking I was going to have to cut right back. My body was struggling, and it wasn't an immediate fix, but the sports massage got me through it, along with some exercises and things. You know, I definitely need to develop some more care for myself, I think.
Yeah, it's easy to let that slide.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't have a hot tub, so I don't know really.
Maybe pick up one of those habits. The hot tub.
Yeah. There's room in it for my life, although I think the kids might be in and out of it while you're trying to relax.
My time is always in the morning, so I'll start my day, and it's kind of cheating, really. Instead of stretching or running or something like that, I warm my muscles up by sitting in water. And
I suppose the nearest I get to that's having a hot bath, but yeah.
Those help too.
They do.
So, favorite drink?
Oh, you can't beat a cup of tea, can you? It's very British.
I was
very
just going to say,
Sometimes I'll dabble with an Earl Grey, you know, push the boat out.
Do you have a favorite song?
Again, I think it depends what mood I'm in, really. The one that my wife and I did our first dance to always seems to sort of spring to mind. It's always, is it Snow Patrol? What's it called? Forgot the name of it now. If I lay here, if I just lay here.
Yeah.
You know the one?
Right. Yeah, I do. I assumed that it was that one, but
Chasing Cars.
That's
it.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I've got a few other songs. You know, I used to be into my 90s dance and stuff. There's a few classics.
Same here.
Can't help but get your heart rate going again and get you jumping around, even if you're not in the mood. But
I found the most depressing day was when I was working at a farm, and they said, okay, it's time for the way back throwback lunch. And they started playing that.
Yep. Yeah.
I finally reached that point where our stuff is the oldies.
It's the retro nights now, yeah.
Not a good feeling. Maybe we already answered this. Do you work out?
I did.
Okay.
Much to my eternal shame, I really did get up early every morning before everyone else in the house was up. And I particularly when I was doing my fellowship, I was a stone and a half lighter then than I am now. Damn sight fitter. And I found it really, helped me to focus. And I plan to get back into it. I've fallen off of that one at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Those ones are hard to pick back up.
They really
stick
are.
with. What knives do you use?
I use those Tasaki Forge ones.
Okay. Yeah.
Kingerly, I think they confusingly come with several different names.
Yeah.
I think the guy that makes them works at Tasaki Forge or owns Tasaki Forge.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I've used those for years, and actually I've just broken into a new loop knife, and I've had the other one for about 3 years.
Oh wow, okay.
You don't realise how thick they are again when you get a new one out, and you can't go around corners or anything. Just a loop knife and a straight blade for those that tend to fill my most of my requirements.
Right. What would you have been if not a farrier?
I dabbled for a while with foreign exchange trading, just for enjoyment rather than for particular. I wasn't brilliant at it. And I've always been interested in the law and things, so maybe I'd have gone down a legal route.
Yeah.
You never know, one day I might still, but I don't know is the honest answer. I think whatever I'd have done, I'd have wanted to be good at it. So I think if I tried something and it, was obvious that I was going to be mediocre, I think I would have struggled. So again, with my apprenticeship setting me up as well as it did, I think I was very lucky that, I was never the best, never will be the best, but I can honestly say that I've been lucky to have had the experiences I've had to allow me to do all right at what I'm doing. So
yeah. And then the final one, the COVID question: if you were stuck in the shop with somebody for a month, who would you want it to be?
Gosh, I listen to your podcast and I think, who would I ask? And I've never really.
You haven't come.
I'd like a selection.
Yeah, well, you can do that too.
Obviously, I'd have to ask my wife. She
got that base covered.
Yeah, just in case she listens. And then my old boss, Chris, I speak to him quite regularly. Never properly, or not very often properly anymore.
Right.
And he was a real inspiration to me. He'd be a good one. And he's good at challenging you as well.
Yeah.
So you could pass the time of day doing that quite happily with Chris, I think.
Right.
And
the month would fly by.
Yeah. And then a few other guys. I value my friendship with Greg Elliott. Such an intelligent, humble, modest guy. He'd be good fun to spend a month with.
Yeah.
I think, he's good fun to spend a day with. I presume a month would carry on as the same, but I don't know. It's a tricky one. When you're on the spot, it's hard to think of them.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been awesome.